I don't see us live.
Okay, we're live. Yay.
Okay.
It was delayed, but we got there. Hello, people of the world. Okay. Oh my god. Hi, everyone. So we're talking about dating today with my friend Todd.
Hello.
And he is in the process of writing a book about dating. So I wanted to ask you what kind of prompted that, because previously you've written not nonfiction self-help-esque books. So what
Right,
what
yes.
changed for you? What inspired that?
Before it was children's books.
Yeah.
I have two out, and the third one's going to be out soon, Captain Telltale. And so, the dating book was founded in my mind probably about 10 years ago. I just wanted to figure out how to date because I didn't know how to date. You get out of relationships, you're like, I need to find myself and all this stuff. And so it's been something that's been working through me for the past 10 years, and I never got it on paper. And then last year, I was like, all right, now it's time. I feel like I've learned a lot. And so I just wanted to put it to paper what things I needed to know for dating. So it's kind of me talking to myself and to help myself to give a foundation of like, these are all the things that I need to do. Setting a goal, many pieces, right? And we'll get to that. But I think setting goals is the first thing, right? Really defining what it is I want, who I'm looking for, am I ready? Asking those questions. And so that's kind of just what the book is. And it was just me just sitting down and just letting it all out. And I finished it, but I need to go back through and edit it, and then have my editor go through it. And I've been having a couple people read it to give their opinions and whatnot, which I'll actually toss to both of you if you want to read it and give me your opinions.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love reading.
And so yeah. I feel good about it. It's just it does need some good editing, as any book does. The first time you go through, you're like, oh, well, that's what I wrote. Yeah. So that's kind of my whole thing, and it's called "If You Want to Date Me." I might change the title to something like "Changing Dating for the Better." Hold on a quick sec. Let me turn my AC off. I'm in a hotel room.
Well, while he does that, I realize I just jumped right into it without doing our intro of what are you drinking tonight?
What am I drinking tonight?
What are you drinking tonight? I'm sorry, I skipped that part of our.
No, yeah, we should definitely start with that. So I actually was just at a restaurant. And to pull back a quick bit, I'm in a hotel room because I'm in Iowa with a circus group called Cirque Mechanics. I'm not performing, but I'm helping the artists get to their venues, and I'm also helping set up the stage. So I'm in Iowa. They're doing a show tomorrow.
That's so exciting.
So I have two different bottles, and I'm deciding which one I want. I think I'm going to go with the Pinot Noir, but I have J. Lore, it's a cab, and La Crema, the Pinot Noir.
Ooh.
Yeah, small travel bottles, right?
Small bottle, yes. Hotel wine.
Yeah, a solo adventure for me. So it's a bottle sized for me because I can only drink like half a bottle, and it sucks when you get like.
Yeah, like the whole
halfway down, and you're like, But what are you two drinking?
I just picked up this Gallo family Moscato from the store right around the corner from me, and it's pretty tasty. I'm a big fruity white wine fan, so that's my experiment tonight.
It's very good.
Yes.
I have
You have to do the Instagram.
I have a video that this was actually the one that I drank our first podcast.
Yes.
And, it was okay. It's still okay. But I forgot to buy new wine, so
we're just throwing it back.
That's what we're doing.
Throw back to the first one.
Yeah.
So I was watching a previous episode.
Yeah, we're a little crazy.
You had asked a question about what do you do with wine that you don't want to drink necessarily.
Yes.
And did you get any responses?
I never found out. I think people watch it after, and then they don't think we look at the comments, but we do. So.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. So what are your suggestions? Because sometimes I don't want to get stuck with the whole bottle.
Right. I mean, there's a couple answers to that, right? So I'm a person that I tend to not like to drink alone, and I really like to drink wine, so I tend to not get to drink wine a lot because I tend to be alone.
Right.
But this is nice because we get to like all drink together. But inviting somebody over and just drinking with somebody helps me drink wine that I don't tend to like. Oh, I didn't like that
Oh,
bottle.
that's
so
fair.
I tend
Like
to
you have a reason
have
to
somebody
drink
help me
it.
with
Yeah.
Or you can date an alcoholic. That's something I did before. That was a bad idea.
No.
They'll finish all your wine.
We're not supporting that.
Not at all. I do not support it. The other thing is you can water your plants. I mean,
with wine?
I think about that.
Is that okay for them?
I mean, they like liquids, right?
Yeah, but like I don't know.
All
I'm gonna
right.
have to Google that because
It depends on what you're watering, right? Like, I mean, a tree would probably like it. I mean,
That's
if
true.
you have a grapevine, I'm sure that they would like.
Oh yeah,
drinking
those
wine.
grapes.
I don't know. It's a good thing.
That's actually a good suggestion. But I would I would need to look up if my plants could survive alcohol. I'm so sad. I had a pitcher plant, which is a carnivorous plant, and I cannot keep plants alive. But this plant lasted like 6 months, and then I went on a trip, and it died. So I'm so sad. Like it lasted the longest it's ever had, but I came back and it was all dried up. I was like, oh man.
Oh, who do you have there?
Gizmo.
It's Gizmo.
Oh, that's a perfect name.
I named him Gizmo because he kind of looks like Gizmo from Gremlins.
Mm-hmm.
He's a fluffy guy. He likes to lay on me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
He'll be here drinking with us.
Oh good. Yeah. Just don't
Yes.
give him any wine,
Okay. I'll give him like a cat cup of water.
Yeah. See.
Cat gourmet.
Yeah.
Don't they make like those little
but
toys that are like fake wine for cats?
I've heard of those.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that for him, but
People, do you have any ideas for what you could do with wine that you don't want to drink?
No, I like the idea you had for drinking with someone because then it's like an incentive to get through it. I offered it to my roommate, and even she was like, "I don't like this," so we just poured it down the drain. It was only like maybe half left, so. But the bottle is really. I kept the bottle because it's really pretty.
See, that's
the reason I bought it because it was pretty. But
I mean, I think that's advertising for feeding that to plants because.
Oh, you're right. That's what it's for. Pinot Grigio for flowers. How did I miss it?
It makes it smell better.
There you go.
I mean, the other thing I've done is friends that are having parties or even just friends. I just bring it over to their house. I'm like, hey, here's this bottle. I didn't want it. Maybe you will.
That's
and
a
I
good
just leave
idea.
it at that. And I just walk away. So.
Yeah, now it's their problem. Oh, that's clever.
Yes.
Yeah. So don't invite Todd to your parties.
And that's why I don't get invited to parties.
Okay, but back on topic. Yes, cheers.
Can we get
cheers, everyone.
Cheers to
Please.
Nostrovia.
Yes. So, so your book is inspired by your own dating struggles and experience. Do you have any specific horror stories or successes that stand out?
Oh my god, yeah, I have some horror stories, but I tend to not share those too much on
That's fair.
video.
That's fair. Sometimes it's too dark.
and that's the thing. I don't tend to like to talk about people specifically.
Mm-hmm.
To be like, oh hey, that's you, like But I will say this. So I was in Poland and noticed that Nostrovia, that's the way that they cheers there. I was in a bad relationship there, and I got away. One of the things that I took away from that was the most powerful, beautiful thing was I had always set my boundaries with people, but I never held my boundaries with people. Mm-hmm. And I started holding my boundaries in that relationship, and I started to notice big things about myself. I was like, oh, this is actually good for me to hold my boundaries, and it helped me get out of that relationship. And since then, I just feel so powerful within myself of like, oh, not just set boundaries, but hold people to them. And you even see people respond to you differently when you're like, no, I'm not going to let you treat me bad. So it's great. So that's my quick little horror story piece of that putting it into. But yeah, so the book, it's called If You Want to Date Me, which a lot of people will go, well, why do I want to date Todd, right? It's like, no, it's not about dating me. It's about you saying that statement for yourself.
Right.
If you want to date me, here's my non-negotiables. Here's what I want. Here's my boundaries. What can we go forward with that? So it's helping set forward. It's not just that, though. It's also how to change, and this, I might change the title to Changing Dating for the Better or something along this. And maybe you'll help me come up with a title after reading it, pull something out of there. But it's also how we can connect with each other better. Like when we're going on dates, a lot of people are ghosting nowadays, which is a horrible thing. There's another thing called submarining. I don't know if you heard of submarining. So it's when
Who comes up with these terms? But please explain.
I'm sure you've had this happen to you too, which is when you don't hear for somebody from a month or 2 months, and they suddenly appear all excited, like, "Hey, what's going on? Let's go out!" Da, 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 da. And you're like,
I understand. I get it now.
That sounds like my ex, am I right?
An old roommate of mine, she came up with that and told me that, Jamie Jessup.
So that's like a your circle term. That's not like Urban Dictionary is aware of it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I love that. Okay, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the reason why to kind of maybe change it to Changing Dating for the Better is because taking those dating apps and whatnot, people are ghosting and whatnot. And so to get away from that, how do we get away from that? And it's to look at somebody and say like, oh, like being honest and saying, you're not the person for me, being able to say that. But also maybe looking at them and be like, oh, maybe you're a person for my friend, or maybe let's help you find that. So what are we all trying to find in life? My personal perspective is peace, that we're all trying to find. But in our own perspective of peace is, we want to find love and happiness. So let's help each other find that. And that's what the book gets into as well, of how to help each other find happiness. So there you go.
Good. I can't wait to read it.
I know this. It sounds like so helpful, like a different perspective that people don't get when it comes to dating things. Because I know you recommended that one book to me. What was it? Calling out the one or something.
Calling the one, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, which was about like recognizing like patterns and like putting out into the universe what you want. So it sounds like you're kind of expanding on that, but with more of a like real world application, I guess.
I read that book, and I did all the exercises, because it's what it is. It's a daily exercise that you do, which, I mean, just to let everybody else know, it's daily exercises to help find yourself and whatnot, which it helped me a little bit, but you could also tell that the writer, it was her first book, and a little shaky in some parts, and in confidence, I think, in her writing, which is fine, because we all do that as writers, and it was great to see her grow. And she has many more books now, and so it's great to see that she's expanded upon that foundation, but which she has her own story to go off on, but yeah, I think to me that really helped structure some foundational pieces for me. So I definitely recommend it to people. Just the same thing with anything. Like, there's just pieces that will help you. It's not a solve all, right? And my book's not a solve all, right? But it is expanding off of what she wrote, and everybody that's inspired me in life and things that I've written in anything else. Like Larry Winget is the personality that I like a lot. He's the pit bull of self-help is what he calls himself. I like his stuff a lot, and he's really helped me in my own mindset of life. So just that's what we all do. We're all teachers of each other, and it's being able to learn from each other. So
yeah, that book was super helpful for me. I didn't I was like off and on reading it for a while, and then I put it on pause for like ever, because I moved after my last relationship. But that book was super helpful in me recognizing that like this relationship was not for me and all that. So it was really helpful, and those activities could be applied to like anything in life, not just romantic relationships. So I really like that part of it too. Just like
Absolutely,
finding
yeah.
like the best version of yourself to put out into the world. But you mentioned
Yeah.
something. Sorry,
Oh.
Stephanie. Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say that's really good. Like what you just said, it finding all this like self-help in podcasts or books or wherever you find it, it helps you self-reflect on not just your romantic relationships, but your friend relationships, your family relationships, because they're all intertwined in the same ways where you still have to be honest, you have to be open, you have to be flexible, you have to set boundaries and hold the boundaries and put that in all aspects of your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And so let me ask. So I know that Kristin, that you're in a relationship,
Yes.
and then I don't know, Stephanie, like what's your
It's just me and Gizmo.
what's going on? You're in Gizmo.
Just me and Gizmo.
Yes.
So what things in are so what are your goals with your dating world?
Well, I'm right now. So I've been single for a few years now, and the first few years I was just trying to kind of put myself back together for myself. And then in the past couple of years, of course, during COVID of all times, is when I was like, let me get back out there, which is, dating and online dating and all those things are already tricky in it of itself. And now we're adding the pandemic on top of it, which adds a whole different stress level and confusion. But I think what my ultimate goal is just to find someone that I can be honest with and open with and have boundaries with, that I can genuinely just connect with and have a good time with and build some sort of bond and trust and grow from there. The big picture, that usually everybody kind of wants, right, in a relationship, because I don't know anybody who goes out looking for a bad one, but it happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think people set themselves up very well for looking for bad relationships. And
Right.
looking at my own past,
Yeah.
I feel I look at myself and I'm like, oh no, I was setting myself up to be in bad relationships.
Yeah,
So.
and that probably goes in with like self-reflection, right? Because sometimes in the moment you don't even see yourself doing it, and then after the fact you go, oh, I did that thing or I made that choice, and then you kind of accept it and learn from it and move on.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. That's great, because I think that you're a perfect person for reading this book and giving me insight of seeing what things could be worked out better and whatnot in the book, because you're the core audience of it. So
It's me.
You're the ladies with a cat.
Yeah. For the single
guy
with
with a cat, so I get it.
So
Well,
what
and I
is your sorry, Stephanie, I keep
I
talking
was
over
just
you.
gonna say, I think the biggest struggle is the fact that we're trying to connect with people mostly virtually or online at this point, which has been the biggest, I would say, struggle for my personal dating journey, because I've never been one that's been very fond of going online. But obviously, after so many years, then you kind of get pushed into it, because what are the other options at this point, when you've tried a lot of other things, especially if you're in a field, I'm in a field where I work with children, so I don't meet a whole lot of people. So when you're in a career field where you don't meet a whole lot of contenders, it's less likely to just meet on a random occasion. You kind of have to forcefully look for it online, which has never been my favorite thing, but I've learned to accept it, but it is a big struggle.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is that I think a lot of people think that that's become the norm of where people are looking for each other. But how many people are you really finding that are having success with the dating apps, right? And there are other ways of finding people. It's just breaking that down. Like, first of all, what specifically are you looking for, and then is the place that you are, what things are you doing to specifically take that? Because in our culture, American culture, right, there's the thing of, oh, the lady's supposed to wait, and it's breaking those norms, I think, and saying like, well, what things can I do to maybe help a guy know that I'm open and wanting to, which being on the dating apps could be one way, but there are people that specialize in and I was telling you a little bit about my friend Nick, who has a dating service, right? He helps people find each other and connect, and he himself was in the business and working for somebody else, and I mean this is kind of his story to tell, not me, but to tell it for him. But to give a quick thing of it, he just wasn't happy with the way that world was going, so he created his own business with it. And I love what he's doing. He's trying to really make actual real connections and be honest about it. And it's not about necessarily the money. Of course, he's business. He's got to bring some in, but he's more focused on making sure that to make real, true connections, and he's not forcing people on each other or telling people, like, you're doing the wrong things, right? It's like, hey, what can we do to help support you get there? But that's the thing. It's like, what can we do to help other people know that, hey, like, I'm interested, right? And I mean, not to tell you too much, but I think there are other ways than the dating apps. I think the dating apps are absolutely trash. This is kind of what that book kind of talks about, that they're not made correctly because they're made to ghost is what they're made to do. They're not leading you in any way of anything. And Tinder especially, right? It is a hookup app. Like, if you're on there, you're not looking for a relationship.
Honestly, in any of them, like any of the websites, like they say Tinder has that stereotype, but I'm like, it's not. It's literally any app you go on. Like, anybody's looking for just unless you're straight up honest with what you're looking for, you're not gonna like be able to know if this person is here for a relationship or a friendship or a hookup or whatever, because people go on a million websites, they'll make a million profiles on all of them just to do the hookup thing. So yeah, they're all
yeah. Or that, or just to get Instagram views, because that's the other thing you see on those things.
Yeah, that's true.
Follow me on Instagram.
Yeah. So Kristin, how did you find your current beau?
Well, okay, I've been pretty lucky in my dating life where I've never had to use dating apps or online, because I've met everyone that I've dated like at school or at work. And I mean, for me, I work in a male dominated field, so like that is pretty easy to do for me. But like my current relationship, we met at college, and we were both in different relationships at the time, and it wasn't until after we graduated and had since broken up with these people that we were like reconnected. And then we were like, oh hey, like we actually like each other, let's hang out. And then same thing, like COVID hit, and it was like, I feel like if you were lucky enough to be in a relationship around the time of COVID starting, then it would either make or break the relationship, right? Like, you're either going to be with each other 24/7 in lockdown and all of your stressors are going to come out and it's going to destroy you, or you're going to go through that trauma together and it'll make you stronger, which is what happened with us. Like, we ended up spending lockdown, like those first 2 weeks together, and we were just like, wow, we really like are seeing a lot of each other and not getting sick of each other, like let's move in. Like, everything just kind of happened really fast, but it was all really positive the whole way. And I was talking to Stephanie about it. Like, my last relationship, I moved out like right before, like a few months before COVID started. And I'm like, thank God I got out of there, because if I were on lockdown with this person, like, we would have gone, it would have been so much worse. Like, oh my God, I thought the relationship was bad when we never saw each other. Imagine being stuck in the same room for 2 weeks. Like, so I do recognize that, like, I've been pretty lucky when it comes to like meeting people That doesn't always mean that they were like the best people for me, but like for this particular relationship, it's been really positive. And like the pandemic kind of just amplified that because we had to like go through everything very early on in the relationship with like stress and like grief and depression and like every feeling that we all had at the beginning like was all happening together like right at like the early stages of our relationship. So it was really like trial or error, and luckily we made it through and we're still going strong. So thank thank the lords for that. Thank whatever beings are out there. But yeah, I've been pretty lucky with this one. So
Good.
yay.
It's funny. I used to say this to people. I actually said it's one friend who got married, and he told everybody at the wedding that I said this, which was, if you could go on vacation with somebody and not want to kill each other, you've made it.
Yeah.
And I think the new thing is now, if you made it through COVID together and not wanted to kill each other, which I've seen a lot of people want to kill each other, but you've made it. And so I don't know, like that's kind of the thing. And Justin Shavers, who Kristin and I know each other from, I worked at the stunt show at Knott's Berry Farm. She was a tech, and one of the stunt guys back in the day, Justin Shavers, he got married to his sweetheart. And yeah, he said that I said the vacation thing because they were going to Australia, and when they got back, they had a great time. They didn't fight once, and I was like, it's time to marry her. It still took them a couple years, but they got married, so it's great.
Yeah, that is like
actually,
a true test. Like,
yes.
even with my like early in my last relationship, we would go to Disneyland when we didn't live down here, and it was like a week-long trip. And I'm like, oh, we spent like 24/7 like with each other, and we didn't have any problems then. But like we were in Disneyland, so like you're happy all the time. But then like you live with each other and like work and everything, so it is sort of like it depends on the people. And I'm sure like if I really wanted to use a magnifying glass on it, oh, we have a 10-minute warning. If we had if I really wanted to like comb through the details of that, I could have been like, oh yeah, that like Tuesday of our trip was not super great. Like I could have seen like red flags or whatever. But rose colored glasses, whatever. So I just got a warning from Zoom that we have like 9 minutes left. So if we want to take a break and come back and continue the conversation, or if we're all dated out, we can do that too.
Oh yeah, I'd love to come back and have more conversation and have, because I got plenty more wine. So
I know I have a whole bottle, so we can talk all night.
Yeah, and more wine out of my mouth too. So
there you go. See, I knew the show was aptly named. We're not just drinking wine; we're also whining. So
that's what I took from it when I.
Okay, so people get it. People get it. All right, friends, we will be back in a few moments. Stay tuned. One person watching.
Kitty cat. Bye. Just gonna want some wine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Oh my. Hello, everyone. I am restarting the Zoom, so bear with me while we get our friends back. Let me, I can't see who's watching right now, but I do see that we have a viewer. So let us know if you have any questions for me, Stephanie, or Todd. And we will love to talk to you about it. 1 second. I'm like a one-woman production company, so bear with me. Kristin dance break. Woo, 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 woo. Let's see who is watching. If you are just putting this on in the background, just tell me your name so we can say hi to you. And if you are oh gosh. Todd's here.
Hello.
But he's not in the stream yet because of reasons. Oh, that's why. Because I ended the thing. It's gonna be great to watch this again and watch my little like 2-minute solo dance break while I start the Zoom meeting again. There we go. We're back.
Beautiful.
We're back. We have a viewer, but they won't tell me their name. So,
Oh, that's okay.
so we love that you're
anonymous.
here. If you have questions, throw them at us.
So you also had brought up, like, working on the theme song. Like, what's your ideas for your theme song?
What? We kind of just make it up as we go. I was thinking because I had a podcast briefly during the pandemic that was to talk about mental health, and one of my coworkers actually wrote music for it, and it was so good. And I feel bad that I couldn't keep up with doing like the whole production by myself. So I'm tempted to like ask him or ask someone else to do a theme song for us for this. But in my head, it's like not Good Morning America, but like a morning talk show like vibe, because like we're talking. That's in my head. I don't know what Stephanie wants.
I'll go with the flow.
The James Bond theme.
I think of something like the Meow Meow song, the Meow Meow
Oh,
Meow
Meow
Meow.
Mix,
It would
like-
be wine, 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 wine,
Cute.
wine, wine.
Yes. I love it. We'll come up with something eventually.
Oh yeah.
What were we
I just
talking
keep
about
watching-
before Zoom
Well,
interrupted us?
I just keep watching Gizmo because Gizmo's adorable.
Oh, Gizmo's
The
the
show.
best.
He does.
I
Even
stayed
Brewster.
at Stephanie's place for Christmas with my dog, and Gizmo was like so offended that there was another man in the house. So he was very vocal about his.
He was fine until Brewster showed his age. Because Brewster is
Is a
young
puppy.
lad who likes to run around, and
He's a
Gizmo's
young
kind
man.
of an old man. He likes to take things slow. Brewster just is so excited, and Gizmo is not ready for all of the energy.
They were fine on day one, and then I think the longer we were there, Gizmo was like, "When is he leaving?" Speaking of my child, he's defending me from the wind. So.
It is dangerous.
It is. I hate the wind. So Todd, moving forward in your dating life, what are your goals?
So my goals is to. I'm not ready to date yet. I started to date a little bit a year ago, and I realized I still wasn't ready yet. And I just wanted to really focus more on what I'm doing, which is, Stephanie, you're saying that you're in with children and whatnot. Like that's my realm as well. So I want to do children's entertainment, which I've been doing for many years, and I just really want to focus and hone in on it. Just to do some more. I want to take it on the road and do traveling shows, and that's kind of what this show that I'm out with now is helping me with, is so I can see different venues and meet the people at these shows, so I can start talking to them to get an understanding of what I need to do to make sure that I have a show that's ready for them. And yeah, I'm learning the rigging process as well, what things that theaters need. So I know you're asking about dating, but kind of my realm right now is really just kind of focus on me, my business, and make sure that I feel like I'm whole. And that's kind of what the book talks about as well, right? Is making sure that you're healed of your traumas, because traumas is huge. Like if you don't heal your traumas, you're gonna eke them out on other people, and heal them to a certain point to where it's not damaging to another person that you're with. And I've done a very good job about that. But as I've been putting it out there, trying to date, I just kind of noticed, like, I was like, yeah, I'm still just not ready because I don't know how to put into very specific words of what it is that I exactly want. And I know the feeling of it. And from dating different people, I'm like, oh, like I take pieces from each one. I'm like, oh, like that's what I want, like this kindness, this kind of communication, this intelligence, and just to see that all in one person. Because I'm not a person to settle. Like some people are okay with settling, and that's fine for them, and that's kind of the setting goals. It's saying what kind of amount of settling are you okay with? And I'm a person that I'm okay with being alone for the rest of my life if I don't find very specifically what I want in another person. And some people are like, oh no, like you know, I was just reading Eric Idle's book. Eric Idle's one of the Monty Pythons, and he was talking about how, um, pretty much there's three types of men. There's I forget the exact thing he said, but small, medium, and extra jerk kind of a man. And he was like, yeah, that's kind of where I was fitting in his life, right, until he fixed himself. But then he was talking about a lady. He was talking to a friend, and he said, well, what kind of man do you want? She's like, well, if he's got a penis and a brain, I guess that's it. Because she was just like, I know that I'm not going to get something spectacular, and I just want a relationship, right? And that's okay for her because she's setting that as her goal. But for me, like I very much want happiness. I want somebody that I can help be happy, and for them to help me be happy. Like, hey, how can we make sure that we're both making sure that we're feeling great about each other and not tearing each other down. And I've had too many relationships where there's too much tearing down going on, and we're trying to battle, and it's like no more than that. Like let's lift each other up. Let's be happy. And so that's what I really want. I want kindness. I want happy. I want fun. Intelligence, be able to have great long conversations, and just making sure that we're there. So that's my goal, is to find somebody like that. And yeah, I mean that's kind of it. And so I kind of like go into the dating world a little bit here and there, like every couple of months. And I used to say when I was in Hollywood that I would date once a month just to remind myself not to date, because Hollywood was horrible for dating. But like traveling around is neat because I get to see different types of people and different energies. And I mean, I've known for a while LA is not my scene. Southern California is just not a place to date, and that's where I'm living. So it's like I'm not going to try and date there anymore. But going out and seeing like different states, I'm like, oh, like there's such great kindness in other parts of the states. And it's kind of my thing too, is I want to know where I kind of want to end up in the world. So traveling has been great because I want to see where I want to go, and maybe I just want to keep traveling. But I think that my goal right now is just to really just take my time. I'm happy with me, and that's such a great feeling. And just to let the right person flow in, and people that I meet along the way hopefully will help me get to that point. So that's where I'm at.
I like how you said two things that I really noticed. What struck me was when you said that there's like the types of people that settle, and then there's the type of people that don't settle. And that makes a lot of sense because, if your goal is to just have a relationship, then I guess you're going to settle at some point just knowing that you're settling, right? Which kind of reminded me of my own situation where I have a lot of people in my life that, have known me as the single one for so long that they just kind of go, oh, well, just come on, like, just give him another chance, or, you're looking too much into it. And I go, yeah, maybe, like, you're making me seem like maybe I have too many, like, standards or whatever, which could be true, but also, sorry, Gizmo, but also, like, maybe I just have some specific standards that I'm much happier being alone than accepting that of that person, because that's not going to make me happy if I have to settle for someone who does this thing or doesn't do this thing that I want and I need for me. I'd rather just be by myself, and because I can make myself happy right now with where I'm at. So that makes a lot of sense, and that's a really good point that I think a lot of people, men and women, need to realize as well going into their dating life and their dating goals, is like what they're willing to quote unquote sacrifice or settle for for their ultimate end goal. And then there's another thing you said. Oh my God, I lost it already. But you said you would be happy alone because you're happy with where you're at, and I think that goes into the whole settling thing because so many of my friends are like, oh, I just wish that one day you can find your perfect person or whatever. I'm like, yeah, that would be great, and when I do find that, that'll be that. It'll be great. But for now, I think I've made my life just how I want it on my own at this point, that if I am going to allow someone to come into it, then they do have to meet my needs and my boundaries and what I'm looking for, because if they don't, then there's no point disrupting the great life I've developed over the past years of being single. Otherwise, that all goes down the drain, right? So anyway, I thought those were good points.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and yeah, definitely glad that resonates within you about what you're doing, and to not let people affect you that say things like that, right? Which is, oh, well, just give somebody another chance or whatever. It's like, no, they're gone for a reason. Like,
Right.
and that's what a lot of people say. Like the if it's not a F yeah, it's a F no, and it's a hard thing to sit in, to be able to say that and do that. But once you get yourself to that point of being able to be like, oh yeah, like I'm there, and somebody comes up that's not, you go, nope, not interested. and another thing I even talk about, and it touches on the book, I don't know if this will stay, but how to not even go out and go have relations with somebody that is just like, oh, that's obviously a no. Like, just stop having like a sexual relationship with anybody. Just like, oh, like I have needs to fill. It's like, no, you don't. Like, you could just say no and just say goodbye.
Right.
And to let yourself sit in that and it's okay to there's kind of a balance here, right? Which is, hey, I want to go and have a time like that, and it's fine to do that, but to make sure you have an anchor set for yourself to be like, oh, like I'm gonna go do that. I'm not gonna get caught up, and I'm gonna be communicated to that person that this is what I want, and make sure that that's what they want, and then to pull yourself back and be like, okay, like now I'm back to center. I needed to have some fun, which is totally fine for us to do, right? You go on vacation and you're like, hey, like cruises are notorious for that. But that's the thing is, but to really set yourself in this mindset of like, okay, because if you're having something like that and you're just like, oh, I'm just going to be casual until I find somebody, you're blocking out that great person to come in, and it's like, well, I'm not going to be able to be able to accept them in because I have something already sitting in front of me, right? Which some people talk about. They're like, oh no, I had a boyfriend, and then this guy came up and he was like the one, and I was just like, oh, right. And it happens to some people, but everybody's story is different. Everybody's story is crazy, but this is what I think would work best is if you do just sit in that and be like, hey, let's make sure. Which some people might say, right? Like, it's easy to get a job when you have a job. It's easy to get a relationship when you're in a relationship. So, but I don't know. I don't agree with it.
Yeah. Well, Stephanie, you even said to me, like, on some of your like online dates that you've been on, is like, I'm just not feeling it. Like, I'm not going to talk to him anymore. And like other people will be like, oh, but he seems nice. And it's like, like if there's a spark or not, like, like Todd said, like if it's a fuck yeah or a fuck no, like why would you keep going along just to convince yourself that maybe they're good enough? Like, it's just a waste of time.
And sometimes I will give it like a second or even a third date, just to like see, because first dates are awful. Like, they're just so awkward and nerve-wracking on both ends for so many different reasons, right? So sometimes you're not going to get like the full like open picture of the other person. So going on a second or a third, if you were kind of like, oh, they were kind of nice, but like I didn't get too much from them, but let's see what happens on the second one or whatever. But if it's like the same vibe just constantly and it's not evolving, then obviously like it's not there. But yeah, it's hard when you have the people going, well, you're just looking for things that are wrong in this person or whatever. And it's like, no, I'm not. Like, there's nothing wrong with them. Like, they could be a great person for someone else. Like, there's nothing wrong with them. it's just me personally. I tend to be I like to say that I'm a very good judge of people, but that's just my personal opinion. I have a good energy read on people. So when I see and hang out with people, like I kind of know instantly, like for the most part, whether or not I want to like hang out or whatever, or continue some sort of relationship or friendship or anything. So when I see them and I hang out with them for like a good couple hours and it's like not there, it's just I'm not gonna find it. I'm not gonna like go digging for it when it should just kind of, not that I should know instantly if I want to marry the person right away. Obviously that's not gonna happen on a first date. Like I've also learned that, you know, that comfort factor, that trust factor, that all those factors do develop more over time, obviously. But just that instant connection, if there's like not at least a little bit of that, like there's nothing to really go off for me. So yeah.
And like there's like that gut instinct where like you can kind of, like you said, like read someone's energy like instantly, like if you feel comfortable with this person or
or if
whatever.
they like hit, or if they're a great person, right? Or in this case, this specific, there was one date. It's great, very nice, very communicative, very honest. I was very honest with him. He had a value that I didn't agree with, and it's a value that's very, very significant for me to uphold in my life, with the people in my life, in my circle. And if I bring someone in who has a completely opposite value of that, like that specific value, I can't bring that in when I'm so not about that. So sometimes those are deal breakers. You know, there are some values that are just deal breakers for me. So even though they can be like a totally nice person on the date, if there's something big like that, I'm not going to be able to just like go, okay, well, I'll let that one go and settle, right? Because I've gone my whole life being very against a certain thing or very for a certain thing. And if they're not on the same page with something as big as that, then like it doesn't seem like a good recipe.
Yeah. Todd, you mentioned something earlier that Stephanie reminded me of just now. You said like this person might not be right for me, but maybe they're right for like a friend. But there's that whole like friend code thing. Like, does that ever come into play of like, I dated this person and they didn't work out, but I also now know what they're like and I think they would be great for so and so, but maybe they wouldn't want to agree to that because of that whole like friend code. You know what I mean?
Sure, and I think there's different levels to that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of talking at more of a level of just getting to know somebody, kind of a level. But I mean, there's different levels of that, right? If you started dating, if you started having sex with each other, if like you've been together for a couple months,
right.
I think as you get older, you start seeing that realm of, oh no, like I was with this person for a while, but I have no attachment beyond that. Like obviously I don't like that if I'm pushing them on you. And I think that's just a maturity level as well that kind of goes a little more. And that's the thing, like if that person might want to date them in the future, I think that's kind of more the friend code thing of like, oh no, like you guys have something like at a deep level, like let's not get this twisted, right? So, but yeah, I think I was thinking I was more of a smaller level of like, oh, as we just get to know people, like, hey, like I don't know you, but let's help celebrate you, like, you know, and help you find your person. You help me find my person, like, you know, like we all have friends, right? And it kind of goes along with what you had said about your relationship, right? Like, and kind of with the dating scene thing, right? It's like, oh, well, you're kind of accepting that Tinder or whatever is supposed to be the way to go, but then you look at Kristin's story, right? And you're like, oh, well, she met somebody at school. The best stories I always hear are people that, you know, like find each other through friendships. Mm-hmm. And there was a company that does adventures. They go on whitewater rafting and whatnot, and they're all about like, hey, but you have to be single to be in this group, because they find that the best way to find somebody is through, bonding with each other and getting to know each other. And so I think that company's doing a great job, or was before the pandemic hit, of getting people together and like, hey, like let's help each other, think of it on that level. But to go back on what you're saying, like, yeah, the whole friend code thing, I think that's partially a maturity thing, but also if you've seen the messy parts of your friendships, relationships, you probably that's where it's like, okay, yeah, that's there's a fine line, and that's where it gets cut, right? So, and that's also the maturity of your own friendships. So being able to communicate that, like, like I'm not interested in this person at all. Like, this is your kind of person. Like, let's see you be successful and go for it. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, it depends on the friendship, maturity and whatnot. But I also think that like your friends in this like intimate way, and this person in like an intimate way, and so you would know a little bit better like their compatibility based on like how you've seen them behind closed doors, so to speak. So like people should just throw that friend code out of the way. Yeah. Hello, Dom's Journey. Thank you for joining us. He agrees, or they agree. Yes, he. Sorry, I can't see. I'm blind. Yeah, I think that the friend code should be thrown out the window.
That's the problem with the friend code too. Is usually it's an unspoken code, and it's like, hey, let's start having a conversation about that code for friends, so that we're on the same level, and to be comfortable enough. Because I've had a friend who was dating somebody, and he brought it up. He was like, hey, like, just so you guys know, if one of you guys dated her, I would be not happy with it. And we're like, good, like, thanks for expressing that. That's awesome to know. And then he ended up getting engaged with her later. So I was like, see,
so that was like, yeah. But open communication is very nice. Yeah, like, I mean, I have friends that like that I have considered like, oh, they'd probably be great for my ex, but like Stephanie is not one of those people. Like, I would not put her in those relationships, but like I know other people that like would bring out the better part of them, or like would counteract the like negative part of them, and I'm just like, they would be great, but like I'm not in a place to like set up my ex. Like, he's not gonna go for that. But if people were like, Kristin, you're the one person who can set me up, then like I have in my head like people that I would pair up, but that'll never happen.
Yeah. And that's what this book is supposed to help with too, because as you go through the book, it has little things that you write down saying like, oh, this, the whole thing behind if you want to date me, it's you stating those comments and saying like, if you want to date me, this is what I'm trying for, this is what I want, this is who I need, all the little pieces. And it has it all through each chapter that you write it down. So by the end of it, you can make a list of, this is what I want. And you can just slip that note over to a friend or the person you want to date and be like, check it off. Like, anything on there that doesn't work for you, like, let me know. It's a great conversation starter. And I guess that's the problem, is a lot of people just go into the first dates, like you were talking about, like, oh, you get that first date, second date, that they're weird. So you give a third date because you didn't cover a lot in the first date, because you're both like, well, what do we talk about? What do we do? I don't know. Like, where's the depth in this first date? It's how do you bring those things up? So why not just, here's a paper, all right, let's have a conversation.
Yeah, I have a coworker who is married now, but when she first started dating her boyfriend, they did like a personality test together, like to see like how compatible their personality types were, and it taught them like it was some specific one that I'll have to find, but it showed them like, this is my learning style, this is my communication style, this is my fighting style, this is etc. And they were like, it was so helpful to get that all out early on, because then when they would have problems, they'd be like, oh, they're this type, like, and then they could work with it instead of being like, why are you doing this, and like fighting more. They understood each other more deeply like early on. And I think that's really cool. I wish I could find that test. She actually brought it to work once and it's like, let's all do personality tests. And I was like, this is so helpful. I should do this. But it was great.
There's the Myers-Briggs test.
No,
That
it
one
was like a
possibly?
color one. Like it would like I took it and I think I was like a blue and she was like a green and she's like, "Oh, that's why we butt heads on like this one area." And I was like, "Okay." So it made it easier to work with each other. Like it was great for everything, but I forget what it's called, but it divides you into like a color category.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really interesting. But yeah, she said she did that early in her relationship and now they're married. So everything's great. Like open communication.
I think that's like the key is to just like be totally honest and upfront like right away, because I feel like too many people, I've done this, like I've been in this dating game for a while now, so I sometimes it still might happen, but I've learned to try to get out of this habit of on like the first date, you try to act, you're so in your head the entire time, right? Of like, especially if you're meeting someone for the first time and you haven't met them before, you're in your head of what are they thinking of me? What am I thinking of them? And then I don't know if I'm guilty of this. I might be, but I don't think I am. But for the most part, I've had a few dates where they try to like act cool, like, and I think it's nerves, and it's just it ends up being totally not cool. And then they also try to be funny, and then it ends up totally not being funny. And not in like that just wasn't funny. It's like, oh no, like you sound like an asshole because you're trying to make this really stupid joke.
I think because it sounds like it's people that are just like not being themselves on the first date.
Exactly. Like you become, that's what like you have to go into these first dates being totally honest about who you are, so that way you can be honest in front of that person, because why would I want a relationship with someone who wasn't honest? Obviously, I'm getting into a relationship with someone who's not that person. Like, if I liked who you were on the first date, but you were like, it was a facade and that's not who you are, well, I'm going to find out eventually when you show me the real you and it's not you, right? So I think the biggest key on a first date is to just go in, or in really like any sort of like first encounters with meeting a significant other, is going in fully knowing who you are, right? And like just being honest. Like if I am obsessed with having ranch with everything with my food, I'm gonna let you know on the first date. I'm not gonna be like, no, I don't eat ranch.
I'm not gonna eat ranch today. Like that's not who you are.
It's not a cute look, right?
Right.
It's like, no, like, hey, I love ranch. Hopefully you do too. If not, it's okay to be wrong. Like, it's just one of those things where you just gotta be totally upfront and honest. And if they can vibe with you on it and be on the same level with you, on the same page, then great. But if they're so caught up in themselves, or you're caught up in yourself, and you end up totally not being yourself, that's where problems occur, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the whole thing. It's you finding your truth, being able to speak it. If you don't, it's gonna come up at some point, and it's gonna be worse later.
Yeah. Side note, Todd, Dawn's journey is loving your checklist idea and can't wait for your book. So
Yay, beautiful.
you have a new fan.
Are you still in like the editing? I know you mentioned that you're in the editing process, but do you have like a set release date yet for your book?
Not yet. So I wrote it last year, about this time last year, and then I was putting it out to people to read it, to get their ideas, and then I started to just focus on my business a little more, and kind of put it to the side, because I got a little frustrated with the book, and just wanted to step away from it for a while, and I just stepped back into it again this month, and I'm feeling really good about it and diving in. But I also have my third children's book coming out right now, so I'm having to deal with that to try to get that one out. So that's taking a lot of the time, along with the traveling that I'm doing right now. So I don't have a set date. I'm just trying to. Yeah, it's hard to say with a book, because as you're editing, you never know how long the editing is really going to take, unless you set yourself a goal of like, I'm going to have it by this date. But it's not my priority. Yeah, it's not my biggest priority in my life to do it. I would like to get it done by this year. So I just have to find that time and do it. But I want it to be a natural feeling as well, because my children's entertainment stuff is much more important to me. And so once that stuff starts to go, I'll be like, oh, okay, let's dive into it. But I have been working on it, and I'll figure that out. But I'll let you know so we can make sure. And actually, as you're saying it, I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I need to set a goal and be like, what's the date that this is it? So it's important to do with ourselves.
Yeah,
So
I'm
I'll figure
excited
that
to
out.
read it.
But thank you for helping me. do that.
Yes, we're gonna badger you from now on. Like, how's editing?
Yeah,
Is your
right.
book out yet?
See, the helping each other goes beyond the finding each other dates. You know, it's finding each other. You know,
Career
your substance
happiness.
and
Yeah,
setting your goals. Yeah. So
definitely.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, I got another time warning. So should we take another break? And
Sure. Do you want to take it at the 5-minute mark so we get a little more time? Or
yeah, let's. I feel like I just had a question that escaped my mind. So Stephanie, I defer to you.
Okay. You know what I've realized as well, as we were talking about, the settlers and the non-settlers, right?
Mhm.
Like at the same time, there's like a balance too, because like I think you were mentioning earlier, Todd, about working on like your traumas in the past and making sure all that's like cleared up, whereas it never goes away, but like you have a handle on it, and before you get into relationships, and like how that can affect your relationship with someone. And I feel like sometimes at least for me, because I've been single for like a pretty good period of time, that I've gotten so good at being alone, right? And like we talk about how like we would be okay, like we're not going to settle, because like I made my life happy with what I'm doing, and I know if someone doesn't match me, then I'm not going to let them into my life. But then at the same time, it hasn't really come very close just yet, but like when it does get close to like letting someone into my world, I'm kind of like I think I was mentioning to you, Kristin, earlier, I was like, I was laying in bed last night. I was looking at the side of my bed and I was like, one day there might be someone there.
Yeah, and you like don't sound excited about that at all.
Yeah, like I just share the bed, like it's my bed. Get out of here. Like this is my space. But like obviously that'll get like washed because I've been in a very long-term, very serious living with someone relationship before. So I've shared a bed with someone before. So it's not new to me. I've done it before and it worked very well at the time. I have no regrets. But now I was just laying in bed going, weird.
I gotta say, one of my favorite things is having my own space in bed. Like being able to sleep in the center of a bed is such a beautiful thing.
Right.
And with ending relationships, after getting being in relationships, having sleep bed with somebody for a while, then getting back into like your own solo bed, right? It's like this feels really nice to me personally. And that's the thing is, again, society, right? Our culture. It's all about like, oh, you got to share a bed. You got to be in the same bed every single night. But there's people like Helen Bonham Carter, and she is married to Tim Burton, I believe.
Yeah.
They have separate houses that are next to each other,
Oh my God.
and they have their own beds, right? And there's a lot of people that do this.
I've heard of this, not of them, but I've heard of people doing this actually.
Yeah, Stephanie and I were just talking today about how like having your alone time like at home when you're in a relationship is so important. But it's funny you mentioned like sharing the bed or sleeping in the center of the bed because like a few weeks ago I was on the East Coast visiting family and my man was like, I can't wait to spread out in the middle of the bed now that you're not here. And I was like, how dare you? And now he's gone.
Yeah.
I'm definitely an independent adult. No. Jokes. I'm totally independent. The joke is that I'm not okay. Any hoodle.
So that's the thing. So like that's kind of like a big one, right? Two separate houses. What a lot of people do is they have two separate rooms, and sometimes some people have 3 rooms. I mean, who can afford that in California, right?
Oh my god.
But they have 2 separate rooms, so it's like, oh, this is my bedroom, and this is your bedroom. But then some people have an extra room to where it's like, this is our room together, and they have a formula where they're like, oh, like this night you're gonna sleep there, like Monday, we'll sleep in our own rooms, like whatever, right? Or maybe it's just like, oh, hey, look, we'll come together and sleep in this room when we want to, but we've got our own rooms. So
there's all kinds of different dynamics out there.
It's
That
what works for
sounds
you, and that's
so
the most important
fancy.
thing.
Like I can't even imagine having like a 2-bedroom apartment to just myself, like just me and my man.
Yeah, especially with California, where the rent is you have to make 3,000 over rent, right? And you're like, what? How
I'm
do
like, can
my
someone tell my
rent? I have like
employer
$400
that I need to
left.
make more money? Let's pause there and come back in just a moment. Stay tuned, friends. Hello, it's just me again. I hope you guys are enjoying our show. Oh my gosh, I have too many things coming up. Do. So sorry, delayed.
Recording in progress.
Oh my gosh,
Recording stopped.
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for the sounds. I see that we have 2 people watching. Do you have any questions or comments or like horror stories of dating that you would like to share? Sorry, I can't. I don't know. Yes. Here we go. And we're back. Give me 5 seconds to make sure we're back. Because y'all are not in here yet. Hello? Oh god. Okay. Do. Kristin's singing alone time. Here we go. Okay. We're back.
So you're bringing up earlier about personality tests, and I love personality tests, and Myers-Briggs I like a lot. There's another one called Enneagram.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
It goes based on it places you in a number, and the numbers each have like a different type. I think there's 8 different types.
I've had friends who have done that. That's very interesting. I need to like do more research on it.
There's a company. I think they created an app. It's called Crystal, I believe. It's been a couple years. I'm trying to remember. And they also wrote a book, and they focus mostly on Enneagram. But they talk a little bit about all the other personality types. They're like, they feel that this one's the best one because you can connect and see how you work with each other better, and you can also break down people's communication types. Like, like if I'm being sold something, I'm better to be sold on making a connection with me. When some people are like, no, like I want you to give me money, like what's the best for my dollar? That's what somebody else's focus is, because that's their personality type. That's just what they focus on, and I don't care about the money aspect. I'm like, like I want to make sure this is going to be good for me. It's good for the environment or whatever. Like that's kind of my personality type. but it breaks you down into that. So but it kind of reminds me of that, of what you're talking about, because you're talking about colors, but this one's numbers, and so it's and how to work with each other. So it's kind of simpler.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. And so has Dawn's Journey. So that one's like actually really popular right now. Oh my gosh, I just lost it. Oh, have you do you mention love languages in your book at all? Because that was something that when I learned about, it really changed how I saw like interactions with people where I was like, oh, like you might not say that you love me, but like you're showing me. And so that really changed how I perceived like that aspect of communication because I didn't understand like that there's different ways to express that.
Right. Yeah, I talk about communication, which to me that's a part of it, but I don't go into the love language stuff because those books have already been written, and
Right.
so I don't need to tell those stories because those company, the people that did those did a very great job, and which is actually an interesting thing because there's His Needs, Her Needs, which was a book written in
Oh
the
yeah,
early
I've heard of that.
80s,
Yeah.
and then there's Love Languages, which was written about 5 or 6 years after His Needs, Her Needs.
Mhm.
Which His Needs, Her Needs talks about like how you can communicate what your needs are for you to figure them out yourself. Which a lot of people get mad at the book because they're like, well, why doesn't it tell me what my personality or what my needs are? It's like, no,
How do you
figure
not
that
personally know me, author I've never met?
yeah. But he does a very good job of breaking down and communicating those. And the first part of the book, he gives you what they are very simply, but the rest of the book is just stories because he was a psychologist and he helped a lot of. In the beginning, he talks about like when he first started, people were still getting divorced and he wasn't able to help anybody. But then he learned from all the bad stuff. He's like, oh, like, and then people started to stay together because I learned how to work through these things. And he goes up on a long tangent of that in his book. But the very beginning part of the book is really like the meat of it. But then you take the love languages, and it's just pretty much that same principle, just expanded on.
Mhm.
And so it's really interesting if you read His Needs, Her Needs first, and then read Love Languages. You're like, oh, like okay, it's pretty much the same thing. You just marketed it different. Is what I feel about it. Which is pretty much anything in life, right? We all borrow and take. Like writing entertainment is all about that. Like
Yeah.
pulling it in and making it your own. Because personality is what really tends to sell. So when it gets to those, I think they are extremely important for people to know. How to know what it is you need, and then to express that to the other person, and for the other person sometimes to observe and be like, well, you're saying this, but this is what I'm actually seeing of you, right? Because a lot of times we don't know what the hell we want, or we're saying like, I want this, but really what you need is something else. So
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point.
yeah, but I think they're absolutely fabulous books on their own. Like, yeah, everybody should read those. So
Yeah, it was very useful for me because and I took a interpersonal communication class, which is when I learned about them, and we had to do like a weekly um presentation about one of them. And I was like, oh, I learned about this. And then I realized that even though my dad has never verbally he doesn't say I love you, but he does like acts of service. Like he's always doing things for me. And I'm like, Dad, you don't have to do that. And he's like, why would you do it for yourself? And I'm just like, oh, he's doing all these things that I'm perfectly capable of doing, but that's how he's showing his love for me. And he has to do it. Like he won't take no for an answer. So that really opened my eyes and I was like, okay, I'm gonna let my dad heat up the car for me or you know, file my taxes because even though I'm perfectly capable of doing it, that's his thing. So it really
yeah,
made a difference.
yeah,
And I stopped fighting
that's
with
so
him
important.
because it wasn't that big of a deal anymore.
Right. Yeah. So that's beautiful. It's being able to help them find their needs, and I love hearing you say you did that, and especially the being able to be capable of doing it, because
Mhm.
that's the other problem is when somebody does it so much, it's like no, but now you're in this little box where you don't know how to do that yourself. But I love that you are capable of doing it yourself. You're like, nope. Now that I'm capable of doing it, I'll allow you to do it.
Right.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. It's I don't need you to do this, but I know that you want to do it. So
Very,
I'll let you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's one other company to bring up, talking about the love languages, all that stuff, and probably I think the best company out there that everybody should, that's in a relationship, and even before you get in a relationship, but when you're in a relationship, I think it's one of the best ones to be able to help grow the relationship. It's the Gottman Institute. It's a company that started in Seattle. It was actually like I think from grants from schools. They would take couples, they would video them in a house and just let them do whatever it is they do. And they say that they can predict whether a relationship's going to last or not based on one thing. And the one thing is respect. Is once respect is lost in a relationship, it's over. And people can cling on to it for a long time, but you're never going to have a good relationship unless you have respect for each other.
Yeah. I think I saw something like that in one of my classes. But it wasn't respect, it was like contempt. Like they were like able to measure like how people like responded to the other person like entering the room or something, and they were like, oh, we can tell from like your micro expressions that like you do not love this person anymore. And it was like very accurate, and people were just like, what? No, I love them. And they're just like, no, your like involuntary response when they entered the room did not express love. Like that's crazy. Yeah, but respect is like the number one most important thing. So that makes totally sense.
Yeah. In Gottman Institute, they have a program that's a beautiful program that couples should do together. And then I get their emails and constantly just see like the titles of them. I'm just like, God, it's so beautiful. Just they nail it every time. And they don't just work on relationships, romantic relationships. They work on family dynamics, children's dynamics. Which definitely gets my heart because I'm all about that. Like let's change the world for the better. We need all those pieces to work.
Yeah.
And this is another cat.
Yes, that's Binks.
Binks. Named after Focus.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen that movie in a very long time.
That one's like really solid.
And they're making part 2 right now, right?
Yeah, they're making a sequel.
I heard about that. I was so excited about that during Halloween, and then now it's not Halloween, and no one's talking about it, so I forgot about that. So excited all over again.
Stephanie, tell the story of Binks and her brother.
Oh,
I feel like they were switched at birth, but that's just me.
Switched at birth. So I have a good friend, and I had an old coworker who took in a feral cat who had kittens in her backyard, and she was like, "You should come see them." And I go, "No, because I'll take them." And she goes, "No, just look at them." And I go, "No, see, that's no." And then my good friend was like, "Well, I want to get a kitten, so like we'll walk away with one, but it'll be for me." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So we went, and we both took home a cat. And so I chose Binks. I knew Binks was a girl. I didn't think Binks was a boy, but I named her Binks anyway, even though Binks in Hocus Pocus is a boy. I just wanted a black cat to name Binks. So she got her cat, who she thought was a girl, and named her Phoebe. And then later found out that Phoebe is a boy. And I was like, "Oh, are you going to change the name?" And she goes, "No, you know what? It's okay. We're a progressive family." It's, Phoebe's going to be Phoebe. And that'll be what it is. So anyway, that's the story.
So now you call him Phoebe.
Oh, yeah, I call Phoebe Phoebe.
Because he's not a girl. That's cute. I didn't know that you knew Binks was a girl. I thought that you thought he was a boy, and then Phoebe was a boy, and I was like, you guys ended up with the wrong cats.
Binks was a girl. The only thing was because I didn't want to bring a boy into the house with Gizmo, because we all know how that goes. I didn't realize that's when I learned that kitty cats, not all of them have blue eyes forever, but they all start with blue eyes as kittens.
Huh.
And Binks, when she was a kitten, had beautiful blue eyes. And I go, oh my God, a black cat with these gorgeous blue eyes? Oh my God, I can't. And then she grew up and now she's on blue eyes. So like rip off, but I still love her, regardless of her eye color.
That's great. So that's a fun thing. Like, I know obviously animals liking your partner is not a deal breaker, but like Gizmo is the only man in your life and will fight. And I know like Nougat is a lady. Does she get jealous when you have lady friends?
Well, I haven't had a lady friend that she's met. So.
Oh, okay. So you've shielded her from that part of your life.
No, I haven't. Yeah, because I haven't really done a lot of dating. Because when I was in dating the last person, I was in Poland, so she doesn't travel with me because Nougat does not travel well. She wants to stay home, or somewhere familiar. And but she's met people, friends, family, and she loves being the center of attention. So she's just all like, oh no, like she just doesn't like loudness, like big changes in the house. So as long as it's calm, she's good, and as long as she gets to rule the roost, because she's the ruler of everything. So
makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's the same with Gizmo. He's a social guy, so like I haven't brought any like significant others back here, but I've had a lot of male friends come and see him, and he gets in their lap and he has a great time. And but when I was with my my ex, we lived together with Gizmo, and there was a little jealousy because he would make Gizmo get out of bed, and Gizmo really wanted to be in the bed, and so there was a little jealousy and a little bit of tension between the two of them, just at bedtime. Otherwise, they were fine.
That's fair.
But Gizmo kind of, he loves everybody. He loves everybody. And Binks will just hide from everybody. And here's the thing, like, the cats don't have to really necessarily, I don't know if there's really like does your animal like this person kind of thing? I mean, maybe, but I don't know if that's like something that I really look for, like, are they like, do they like them? Like, as long as, you're not deathly allergic to cats or hate cats, we'll get along just fine. It'll be fine.
See, I used to be allergic to cats, and then I moved in. My man friend moved in with his cat, and I got over that allergy because there was a cat in my life, and it's fine. And now the cat likes to cuddle me and not him, and my dog likes to cuddle him and not me. So so it works out. But I'm outnumbered because they're all men. But my dog, I think, really gravitates towards my man because he's like an alpha, and he just wants, like, Brewster just wants validation. Like, we went to training the other day, and my boyfriend was there just like for moral support, and I was taking him out in the store to do all the little training, and then he's like, I can't do this anymore, and just like went back into the training corner to get pets from my man. And we're like, did you really just need a break to be validated by your favorite human? Like, mom's not enough. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. I just like saved you from the shelter, but whatever. Animals are weird. Animals are weird.
Yeah, I would say that for me though, that if Nougat doesn't get along with a lady, like Nougat would come first.
Oh yeah, like
for sure.
Yeah.
But like but like here's the thing, like I agree. Like if Gizmo obviously is having an issue, but I've never really seen, I don't know, an animal like fully dislike a human. Like I've never seen that sort of behavior in an animal as of yet. I mean, I guess it's just because I only bring really nice people around. But
well, you're a really good judge of character, and so are animals. Like they have that instinct.
Yeah, because like I've never experience. Like the only thing is like Binks is just scared of everybody, so she'll just hide. But she like my cats are never. They're not hissers.
Mm-mm.
They're not fighters. They're lovers. So they just love everybody. So I've never experienced that. But if I did, like obviously if Gizmo was like hissing and having a real bad time and growling all the time, then bad vibes.
Yeah. Yeah, animals know good people. So if that were the case, that makes sense. I just remembered something that I was going to bring up earlier when Stephanie, you said that like people have like trauma from past relationships and stuff that they need to heal from or like at least be aware of before going into new relationships. We have a mutual friend that started dating someone who they have very similar traumas, and so like trying to find a balance where they're not like where they're working with each other to like move past it but not like trigger each other by doing like similar behaviors, and like they're both trying to heal and grow at the same time, and it's like very difficult like hearing them talk about it. But it's like unless you go into the relationship like knowing that that's something you're dealing with and that you can be open and communicative about so that you can work with each other instead of just being like, well, I was cheated on once and now I'm going to keep secrets from you. Like, and then the other person's like, well, I was cheated. Like, why are you keeping secrets from me? Like, it becomes this whole, like, it just escalates. So, like, bringing it back to just like open communication, being honest, everything that Todd mentioned at the beginning is like very crucial going in.
Yeah, I think with past traumas, like again, it all comes back to being self-aware of what your traumas are and how you're working on healing said trauma.
Your cats are just like all about the camera right now.
How you're healing said traumas and how your traumas are affecting your behaviors in your relationships. Like for example, if you were cheated on, and like it's okay to be honest with your new significant other about like this is what happened to me in the past, but I'm working on like trust or whatever. But it's at the same time there's like a balance. Like you can't necessarily hold on to what someone did in the past and put it on this new person who has no control of what happened in your past. But at the same time, you have to be able to find someone who's going to understand that to a certain degree to help anchor that with you in a way where, like, you know, in a healthy way. It's all self-reflection and awareness, self-awareness, and making sure that you're with someone who can be that solid for you without them getting nothing in return. You know what I mean? Like they can't be holding down everything for you. Like you have to do the work yourself too.
Yeah. That actually reminds me of another podcast I was listening to where someone in the relationship had been like repeatedly like lied to and cheated on in their past relationships, and in their new relationship they went in with trust issues, but not because of anything that new person did. It's because of that history that they're holding on to. And their new person was like, do you need to go through my phone? Do you need to check my emails? Like, what is it? Like, what do you need to move past it? And they were like, okay, I know I'm being crazy. Like it was a conversation that they had where they were like, I realized that it's nothing to do with me. It's their history that is making them doubtful. And so all I can do is be open with them.
Right.
And then that helped that other person be like, oh, I can't trust this person because they're showing me everything. Like they have nothing to hide. And so they were able to move forward. But also, sorry, one of our comments was there was an instance with Dawn's journey where his ex was afraid of their German Shepherd because she was traumatized as a kid. So like having that that kind of trauma and then a new relationship, like that must be really hard to move past. Because like I also like German Shepherds are the only dogs that I have ever seen be aggressive. One of my coworkers just got bit by one, and like I know that they're really great dogs. Like I have friends that have German Shepherds, but like the only times that I've ever had a dog like growl at me or bare its teeth at me, it's been a German Shepherd. So I totally understand that fear. But I also go into like every dog situation like I love dogs, and then the dog will be like I'm super territorial, and I'm like I will give you space. Like okay. So
I think it takes
yeah.
a lot of patience. It takes a lot of patience on both ends because it's really, if there's trauma in one, there's going to be trauma from both parties, whether either of them are aware or not.
Yeah.
Everyone has trauma, whether you've acknowledged it or not. We've all been through something in some way to some level. But I think it's all about meeting each other halfway, being patient with each other, and trying to find tools together on how to, like, I don't have the word for it, but to really tackle that issue, like with the German Shepherd. Like it would take patience, right? Because it's going to take a long time to build that trust with that dog when that person has had trauma with previous experiences of German Shepherds. So it'll take like little bits at a time, like really small steps of like, okay, they sniffed my hand. Okay, that's good for this week.
Right,
like,
right. You have to work up to it.
And like, the patience and understanding and the communication with all of that. All of it, and all of these different scenarios and relationships all come down to communication and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, obviously. Like people, we say like, oh yeah, just communicate, right? But like it is hard for people, especially if maybe one of their traumas is they weren't allowed to communicate growing up, and so they have to figure that out. So there's also that aspect to relationships of figuring out how to communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody has their own definition of communication as well. So, and people communicate differently. Some people are verbal. People are. I'm very physical with talking, and I've expressed myself better with body communication.
Mm-hmm.
But but verbally, I've gotten a lot better. But I used to be horrible at talking. And some people are better at writing. So I had a lady I was dating. She would write me letters because she couldn't express herself verbally. And it's okay. I'll read your letter to get an understanding of your feelings, emotions, and thoughts. So, and it worked very well for that. So, communication is tough.
You have to find what works for you and your partner. Have either of you ever done like couples therapy? That's something that like people have recommended to me in past relationships, and I'm like, I wonder if it would be helpful to do like to just preemptively, like people are always like, oh, we go to couples counseling like as a last resort before like divorce or whatever. But I feel like therapy's great just in general. I've never done couples counseling, but I wonder if it would be helpful like to just be like, we're in a relationship now, let's go to couples counseling together from the get-go to like be able to communicate and work on those things in a safe space without like bringing all of our shit into the mix. Like we have someone to help, Like what do you think? What does everyone think about that?
I've never done couples therapy, but I will say that now that I'm in my 30s and older and wiser, I think it's not a bad idea. It depends on the couple. Like if you want to start out right away with couples therapy, good for you. Like go for it. Like if that's something that like you would like to do, there's no shame in it. For me personally, I don't see if like I'm clicking with someone and things are going swell and whenever we're having open communication and it doesn't seem like we're having any quote unquote issues. There's no couple that's never going to not have issues, but like if we're not having deep rooted like problems that we're not able to solve ourselves, like that's when I would go, maybe we need to go talk to someone. Like in one of my past relationships, it probably would have been a good idea at the end, because there's obviously something that both of us were not seeing or clicking on, that maybe that could have helped, but who knows. But I do think it can only help. I don't see how it would hurt.
Yeah, I have not done couples therapy. I've talked about it in the past with a couple ladies I've dated, but we didn't end up doing it. But I think that it is something that all couples should do. And to not wait until things get bad to seek it out and be like, hey, let's just have a sounding board and see if we can have somebody help bridge our communication better. And that's why I brought up the Gottman Institute, is because they have the program helps you with those pieces, and they also have I think they have people that are therapists that to help you find like, hey, these people know this system and will help you in a therapy setting as couples. So that's why I recommend that one. No, I haven't done it yet, but I've seen it work for other people, and so I think it's great.
Yeah, it's something that that people have recommended to me as like a last resort, like I said, for my last relationship, and it was something that like we were like, okay, let's try this because clearly we're having problems, and then like we never did it, and we're like, well, we're not even gonna try to fix it, so I guess we're just done. That's great. But even like my parents went to marriage counseling and like got divorced like 2 months later. Like, you know, it's always like you go when it's too late. Like the damage has been done at this point. It's like almost irreparable. But like Todd's saying, like you should go when you're like, oh, we're having like a miscommunication. Like we can't really work out. Like let's go have someone who can help us. Or something that's like a little bit easier to work through than like the entire history of your relationship and then like giving up in 2 months because it didn't magically solve itself. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
that's helpful.
And that's the thing, is that it's like the Gottman Institute, right? They'll give you tools on how to communicate better, and a therapist should do that as well. But sometimes when you're communicating to each other, you're not hearing each other say those things. And how do you tell your partner, I need you to do this, right? And the Gottman kind of does that a little bit, where it says, instead of saying, you need to do this, like, hey, you're doing this problem. A great way to talk about that is to say, hey, I'm feeling hurt when you call me whatever you're calling me, right? Like the insert whatever thing. Or I feel overwhelmed by me having to do the dishes all the time. And usually people will hear that and say, oh my gosh, like you're feeling an emotion. I need to help you with that. Instead of saying, you know, you need to do the dishes because, you know, you need to do your part, because then they just feel attacked. But if you feel like, oh, I'm feeling this emotion from that, your partner's there to help you. And so when you help them understand your emotion, they're going to usually jump in. And if not, then you might want to look at them and be like, oh, maybe you're not the person for me, because you don't care about my hurt feelings.
Yeah, one of our comments is that people usually listen to reply, not to understand, which I agree with. I think that therapy helps with that, with you finding the meaning and not just the words that are said. Because often, like when you fight, then it's just like, all I'm hearing is this, but I'm not receiving the message. So,
yeah, I feel like a lot of the times when people are in arguments, when someone's saying, like, if I was fighting with someone, they would only hear what I'm saying, but they wouldn't understand it. They would only take it as, oh, you just said this. Well, now that makes me feel this way. So then they're only thinking about how they're feeling about what they just heard. They don't even know, they're not even acknowledging the fact that, like, you said how you're feeling about something. They're just feeling how they're feeling about what you're feeling. So like, it's like this like constant like opposite ends of that.
Yeah, another comment says it's about winning an argument versus finding a solution. And often when those moments get like really heated, then it's just like, I'm only receiving the anger part of it. I'm not like receiving anything else. Like I'm just going to tune out and only hear anger, which goes to like any relationship. But yeah. Relationships are hard, people. We covered some stuff.
Yeah, Stephanie and I are smart. We're single.
We're staying away.
Yeah, right. I mean, hey, I'm lucky. Like we don't
Well,
have.
it's also funny. Speaking of that, it's just a lot of people who are my friends and I love them, or not my friends, just like people that are acquaintances or colleagues or whoever that are in relationships want to give all of this like wisdom and advice, right? Because they're in a relationship, which means they're an expert at relationships. Which I'm kind of like, that's not true.
No.
So I'm going to take your advice with a very, very tiny grain of salt. I don't know if you've experienced that in your single life, Todd, but this is what I've experienced in my life. Is not all of them, and it all comes from a very good place. Because they just, when you're surrounded by like couple friends, they know that you're the single one. And so they want to just like all of a sudden like go, well, maybe you should try this, or maybe you should do this, or I heard one of my friends did this, and like, or they'll talk about their own relationship and what works for them, and like that's so great for them, right? But I'm like, well, just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean I'm gonna listen to everything you say.
And that's the thing. I see their relationship, and I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely not taking advice from them.
Right.
Yeah.
But yes, I found a lot of people give, countless advice, and most of them tend to stay away from give me advice because I just kind of tell my funny stories about bad dating experiences and whatnot, and I think they're too busy laughing at those than to give too much advice. And yeah, none of them have tried, setting it up with anybody, so I guess that's kind of a good thing. I don't know what that says about me, but yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think people are
Don's
really
Junior
only experts on their own life. You can't really, comment on someone else's experience because it's going to be very different than your own. So.
Yeah, and then you got Don's Journey. So the relationships are too tough for Don.
Yeah.
And Don's accepted that. LOL.
Well, good for you, Don.
Absolutely, I'm there with you. And preach. My couple friends are like, well, you should try to approach more women and put yourself out there, or recommend me a dating app.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw earlier in our episode, Don's, but we basically just ripped apart dating apps.
Literally, all of my couple friends will tell me, "Go on this app, go on this app, go on this app," and I go, "I'm already on them."
See, I'm like, I'm not trying to be like I'm the special couple friend, but like I've never done the dating app, so when I tell Stephanie like, well, I've heard about this one, she's like, yeah,
right.
Me too. Okay.
Which
I also suggested it, and she goes, but I also know that they're terrible, so like, do what you will.
Yeah.
Which again, I think goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is the way that you met your partner is probably the best advice you can give. Like, hey, this is what worked for me, and maybe that's kind of your realm, right? That's the best thing to say. But when you start jumping into, hey, how about a dating site? That's not your realm. So why even suggest that? Same thing with me, right? Why would I say that?
Yeah.
And see, Don's has not come across one good dating app yet. And then Andrew Arnold, that's a friend of mine.
Hi.
Who's in the comments. We used to work together at a club. He was a photographer, and I danced on stilts at the club for a few years. That was my thing. We had a lot of good times together. He took amazing photos. So he said you tend to meet a lot of incompatible people. Oh, you telling me, Andrew, or this advice that people tell you?
Yeah. Dating apps don't seem like the way to go. Like,
in the dating apps, you tend to meet a lot of incompatible people. I get it, Andrew. I thought you were attacking me. Yeah, in general, yes. I figured it out. Man.
You specifically, Todd. I was gonna say we have a few more minutes, so I kind of want to wrap up. Does anyone in the comments have any questions or anything that like you need clarification on, or you want us to expand on?
or any
Don't
dating
drink
apps
and
you
swipe,
get on?
people. Leads to bad evenings. Thank you, Andrew. I was gonna say something to Stephanie. Oh, yeah, like, for situations like Stephanie who works, and I'm sorry that I'm talking for you, but you work in a like children's setting where it's not easy to meet people like your own age, or anything. Like all your coworkers are female, like etc. So like it is definitely hard to come across situations like me where like I met my significant other at school or at work where like it is like an age appropriate, like multi-gendered um environment. So sometimes it seems like dating apps are really the only way to go, but that they don't always work. So it's like
Yeah, there's one thing that I might be trying this year. It's similar to what Todd was mentioning earlier, which was hard to do at the start of the pandemic because everything was shut down. But it's like these like events groups of like singles that like go and do like horseback riding, or they go wine tasting or whatever. So I have a friend of mine who is also single, and we're like, okay, we hate dating apps, let's do something else. And we're both teachers, so we're both like, okay, what do we do? So we're gonna try that at some point this year, and see how that goes, because I feel like that's more like there's no like of that weird pressure, right, of like that awkward like online no connection, but then you're meeting face to face and not really knowing who you, right, like you're just going horseback riding and like, hey, this person right here riding a horse next to me, like we made this joke and now it's funny and we exchange phone numbers and then it just goes from there or whatever, right? So I don't know, I've never actually like experienced any of that or seen any of that or heard any stories from people that have experienced it, but I'm willing to give it a try. I mean, it's got to be better than online dating.
in worst case,
I
you
don't know,
have those
Stephanie.
memories of yourself, like, hey, I got to go to the horseback riding this weekend.
I don't know, Stephanie. From your past stories, you might come home with a horse.
You might come home with a horse. So we have less than a minute left, but thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Todd, for talking to us about your book, If You Want to Date Me, ... or potential alternate title, TBD.
I'll keep you up on it, and yeah, I'll send it to you both as well. So
Great.
on the Google app.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next month, everyone. Thank you.
Have a great one. Thanks.